Alongside learning the meaning of that card that Lottie's been holding, the Queen of Hearts with the eyes X'd out, we also discover the reason why another person didn't make it out of the wilderness. Starting in the past as usual, Lottie is not recovering well after Shauna beat her ass. She's pissing blood, and when it comes to a caretaker, which is Misty, she straight up tells her, if I die, don't waste my body. And when Misty passes that along to everybody else, it becomes clear to them that they can't let Lottie die. Lottie has become too inspirational, a leader in some ways. So with that in mind, Van decides to pull cards, and the person who's going to sacrifice himself is the person who gets the Queen of Hearts with the eyes of the Queen X'd out. One by one, people go, and you can tell that for some, this is very much needed because, for example, Akila, that mouse she's been playing with all this time, has been dead for who knows how long. So people are starting to hallucinate more and more. But in the end, the person who draws the Queen of Hearts is Natalie. Now, clearly Natalie ain't died because we've been seeing her in the present day, and as much as this show probably is overdue for one of a big twist, that's not the big twist. What ends up happening is Travis, to save Natalie, helps her escape and almost gets killed in the process, but the person who ends up actually getting sacrificed is Javi. Javi tries to get Natalie somewhere where she can hide, likely the place where he's been hiding out, but before that can happen, they try to cross over that lake. He falls into the ice, and Misty stops Natalie from saving Javi's life, thus allowing Javi to become the sacrifice after he drowned. As this is all happening, Ben goes out into the woods as he starts to piece together the map and the symbol, and he finds the tree which is engraved with the symbol, and he notices under the roots there's some type of ritual area. Now, whether this is where Travis was hiding, not Travis, whether this was where Javi was hiding, or if this is a whole separate group or person, hard to say. But maybe in the season finale, which is the next episode, we may get a little bit more information to know, was Javi out there alone or was somebody assisting him? Heading into the second topic, it's about the Adam investigation, how that's progressing, and with them discovering the body and even getting bone marrow since there was no other way to identify Adam, both Kevin and Matt are pretty sure Shauna did it. The challenge is, though, with the way that Adam was cut up, it was like surgical precision, and while Matt for some reason thinks Shauna, because she survived in the wilderness, will be able to learn how to cut that well, Kevin still doesn't feel like he has a smoking gun. So between Kevin and Matt, they both pressure Callie and Jeff in order to confess something or help them to save themselves and let Shauna rot. Neither one is for this idea. And when it comes to Callie, the more she learns about this case, the more she kind of questions not who Shauna is, but how much of Shauna has she inherited. And Jeff, in the nicest way possible, just breaks down that Shauna's been through a lot of trauma, including losing him and her first child out in the wilderness. And it seems the more Callie gets involved in this process, the more she gets to know her mom beyond this wannabe perfect little person, she starts to actually go closer to her. And maybe, even though this might have not been Shauna's ideal way of getting close to Callie, it's working, and it's leading to Callie having more empathy and more love for her mother than she likely has ever had before. But while it is a beautiful thing that these two are starting to go closer, Walter, as soon as he catches wind of Adam being found, he decides he's gonna provide some information to the police, and it's not clear whether or not this is to spite Misty, or if he even heard Misty's voicemail or not, but needless to say, he is slowly but surely becoming an enemy, and honestly, better him than Kevin and Matt, who aren't doing much for the show. The final topic deals with how the ladies are doing in modern times, and with Shauna revealing that Adam has been found, so comes Van and Lottie learning that a lot has been going on without them knowing about it. And this leads to pretty much a whole reveal about Jeff being a blackmailer, Misty being the one that killed Jessica, being part of the cover-up of Adam. Taissa gets put out there about hiring Jessica, and pretty much everything gets put on the table outside of Van having cancer. Never mind however Lottie got out of that mental institution. Now, with everything out on the table, Lottie's of the opinion that the reason why their lives are chaos and is just increasingly getting worse is because the wilderness, or that entity with the horns, it demands a sacrifice from them. So even though nobody's really for it, Lottie brings out a bunch of cups. In the cups are drinks that, with one of them, will kill them. And the idea is, as the wilderness chose in the past, it shall choose in the present. And with the sacrifice, potentially things will go back to normal. So let's get into the highlights. The first highlight has to be learning Javi's fate, and it's not because Javi was ever a high-value character. Yes, his death is perhaps part of the reason why Travis was such in shambles in his adult life, but what really matters about Javi's death is how he died and why he died. Him dying because he drowned, and on top of that because Natalie decided to sacrifice him so that she can save her own skin, it lays out everything you need to know about why she became a drug addict and had a really messed up life. But on the flip side, it also helps you understand why Misty is so invested in her, because before they got into the crash and even after the crash, Misty and Natalie never had much of a way of a relationship or any notable interactions. So I would submit that because Misty saved Natalie's life that one time, and maybe for a while Natalie was thankful for it, that led to Misty latching on to her, and even in modern times trying to protect her, trying to watch out for her, since maybe she's trying to get back to a moment they had where it seemed like they were truly friends. And granted, I don't think Natalie ever was able to replace Crystal, especially in the capacity Crystal was taken up, like being a fellow theater kid and all that, but at the very least, Misty found somebody who needed her, perhaps wanted her around at a certain time, and she's just trying to work her way back into that relationship. The next highlight is just Lottie's hold on everyone, and I say that because in the past, it's always been a question of who's the one that really triggered the cannibalism, and for a certain point, it seemed like it was Shauna because she's one of the first people to trigger the whole Jackie thing. Then you could say maybe it was Van because she's the one who seemingly came up with the process of who's going to get eaten. But at the end of the day, it ultimately is Lottie because she introduced the idea of sacrificing. She, to a certain degree, normalized the idea of people getting eating, since Van's idea of someone getting sacrificed for Lottie came from Lottie being willing to offer her body up for them to have nourishment. So when you think about it, a lot of this deals with Lottie's decision making, her connection to the wilderness or whatever that entity is that has saved them to a certain degree. And then in the present time, straight up, we see that Lottie has a cult. And this cult is dozens of people. And even though Shauna, Thais, and the rest show that they're not necessarily fond of Lottie or her therapy in ways, they are still there. They're still talking to each other, communicating, and even though she tried to kick him out, something about Lottie's pull not only brought them to Cherry Hill, New York, but is keeping them there in some way. And if you go by the previews for the next episode, even though seemingly all of them are not for any type of game which requires them potentially drinking something to kill themselves, they're going to participate anyway, just for some hope of getting back to a normal life, or at least as normal as they can possibly have. Which leads to an offense topic, which for me remains the Adam murder investigation. And I think the main issue with the investigation is not Adam being killed, how he got killed, or who's involved, but more so just Kevin and Matt. Kevin and Matt, they fit that unfortunate shift that we've been seeing in a lot of movies and TV shows where if women get complex characters that are well written, it seems the men are afterthought and just basic and bland. And that's what we get with Kevin and Matt. Kevin, despite his relationship with Natalie in the past and all that he could be, he's a blank slate, he's boring, good cop, and Matt is just this douche who wants to become something seemingly off of Shauna's traumas and using that in order to get a case, but they just don't have it. And I'm hoping so much because Walter kind of has that male Misty appeal to him. Maybe he can give them the boost they need, but there's no guarantees in that. Though, when you think about it, considering we didn't learn how he felt about Misty's voicemail, he could try to play a double agent and use her in order to get the kind of answers that would put away Shauna or maybe anybody else in order to boost his ego and maybe his profile on those Reddit boards that he and Misty are part of for amateur detectives. Overall, as the past and present gain parity and both present quality to the show, now the time has come to question the future of the show, as we have two lackluster characters who are leading the main conflict, and it's not clear whether or not the cavalry will be coming in the form of Walter to help back them up, if not take over, so that we can have not just interesting anti-heroes or protagonists, but also antagonists who you really can get invested or interested in, whether it's in the form of comeuppance or just seeing what type of obstacles are going to put against our heroes to overcome.